Hey, so good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good now. Wherever you are in this world, welcome. Welcome to these non-dual internal family systems meditations. These meditations seem to carry some labels, maybe some meanings attached, maybe some lofty ideas. Really, these meditations could just be called feeling or being, breathing. We don't need labels for the experiences that we have. Sometimes they're useful, but oftentimes labels can really interfere with our direct experience of being. If you're listening to this meditation, you may be here because you're seeking to feel more peaceful, more present in your body. And we know that any psychological trauma that we may have endured during our lifetime can really impact our ability to be present. Bessel van der Kolk, one of the leading trauma specialists, says that a hallmark of trauma is inability to be present, or to experience being present in the moment. In the internal family systems model, presence is one of the qualities of self. So let's first attend to our quality of presence in this moment as we are. Notice how the word presence affects your energy, See if you can attune to your breath. Notice the quality of your breath. And if for any reason you struggle being present, simply experiencing whatever is here directly without any conditioning, any layering, any filtering from our parts. Then you don't find yourself alone. Many people find simply being present very difficult. It's most likely if you found being present really simple and easy and second nature, you probably wouldn't be listening to this. You'd probably just live out your life peacefully being present. More often, we find ourselves really thrown about by the objects of awareness in our inner world, in internal family systems and psychosynthesis, and through Jungian psychoanalysis lens, these are called parts in the internal world. And one of the ways of really settling down and attending to compassionately to our inner activity is to simply feel what is here to be felt without resisting or clinging. And there are ways we can really navigate that process of feeling into our experience. And I use what's called the 8 Fs, 8 steps that really allow us to attune to our inner world compassionately and coming from ourself, from consciousness, from unconditional positive regard for anything that arises. So if right now, as you're listening to this, you're aware of some thinking, worrying, some contraction in your body, or indeed if at any point you become aware of suffering, of uncomfortable feelings, we can follow the 8F protocol. And we start with feeling. So the first F is feel. And this is feeling without resistance, without clinging. We simply notice what is here to be felt. So you can do a quick scan of your body mind. Notice the quality of your thoughts. Are there any emotions? We really open ourselves up fully. And this is the first step, but this step might already be very difficult. In fact, if we were good at simply feeling what is here, you probably wouldn't be here. You'd probably just be feeling your experiences as they come, flowing just like a river, unattached, content, fulfilled, peaceful. And sometimes to detach ourselves from further thinking about the thinking, it might be useful to name whatever it is that we are feeling. Dan Siegel came up with this phrase, name it to tame it. So when we name our experience in a very simple way, it tends to dissolve or lessen the suffering. So for instance, you can say there's some thinking without going into the stories. Or there's some pain in my body. But this already helps to separate, disentangle awareness from the content. When we say, I'm aware of thinking, it has a different quality to saying, I am thinking. Or I am aware of some contraction is different to say, I feel contracted. And this is just the first step of the 8. And this can be often the most difficult one. Just simply being present and labeling in a very simple way what the experience is. Thinking, sensing, feeling. The next step is feel through. What do I mean by that? Imagine that you're an ocean and you've been attuning to or feeling the surface waves. Now imagine if you were to feel through the waves and keep going down and deep down through the thermoclines of the ocean. 30 meters down, 50 meters down, 100 meters. What do you notice? As you're feeling through, what do you notice? Closer you get to the bottom. And hopefully, for some of you, there'll be a sense of peace, stillness. This is your essential being. It's inherently peaceful. Inherently fulfilled, not lacking anything. Notice how it feels as you feel through the content of your experience. For those of you who find this easy, that's great. For some of us, we may need to use some additional techniques at this point, at this second step of feeling through to get to our essential being. And those techniques are very similar to self-inquiry. They have some flavors of the neti not this, not that, stripping away layers. There's a mindfulness technique, see, hear, and feel, that can be used as well. Noticing what you see in your internal world, what you can feel in your internal world, and what you can hear in your thoughts. And one by one, gently letting it dissipate in awareness. This is very similar to unblending in IFS. Diffusing, disidentifying, disentangling from the content of our experience. For some of you, this may be necessary step. Sometimes we can pose some questions. To whom does this thought occur? Am I this part? Am I this feeling? Am I this thought, this sensation? And then hopefully when you feel through the layers, we arrive at field. This is step number 3. And we really open up spacious field of awareness for our experience, just to be as it is. And again, this has qualities of self, the true self. Presence, peace, compassion. You can imagine this as an Rumi's field, out beyond right or wrongdoing. There's a field. I'll meet you there. This is this neutral space of simply witnessing and being present to whatever is unfolding. Those of you who really enjoy active imagination that Carl Jung favored, you might imagine this as a wild meadow, this field as a wild meadow that's bustling with all sorts of flora, wildflowers, even plants we might call weeds. Some people see these as medicines. Notice how in this spacious field, there's space for everything. There's space for all the flavors, colors, shapes of your internal experience. We needn't resist anyone and neither cling to anyone. No need to cling to beautiful flowers and resist weeds. All are welcome in this meadow, this Rumi's field. If you notice yourself in a peaceful space, resting as awareness itself, from this space we can open up and more active, nurturing, compassionate aspect of us that can friend. That's the next F, number 4, friend, that can befriend the inner world. From this open, curious, compassionate space, we can build unconditional friendships. We can attune to and embrace even the most extreme parts of ourselves, the ones that we'd like to forget, keep in the shadow, bypass. The addictive parts of us, the angry parts, the parts that struggle with loneliness, grief, overwhelm, hypersensitivity. When we're in this field, everything is welcome. We befriend our experience, as in Rumi's guest house. Every guest is sacred. So notice how that feels. Notice how it feels for your experience to be welcomed, to be nourished by the friendship of your compassionate self. The next 2 F's are flow and fluid. And the flow and fluid are aspects of somatic experiencing, which simply means being present to whatever is unfolding in the body. Be that a really lovely, loving, spacious, open feeling in the chest, or its opposite, contraction, resistance, suffering. This is something that I developed for non-dual internal family systems, where we oscillate in between the polarized experience and between parts and self, or difficult feelings, sensations, and emotions, and our spacious, compassionate, welcoming presence. So contraction versus expansion, suffering versus peace. This is really useful to be able to tune into these polar opposites. This also comes from one of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, where he points that by experiencing the pairs of opposites, suffering ceases. When distress arises, ride opposing thoughts back into non-dual awareness. By reversing instability into stability, from refusing into non-refusing, suffering is relinquished. Through disidentification, the pairs of opposites cease their noxious effect. By reversing the pairs of opposites, stability and the release of suffering are quickly achieved. So Patanjali's wisdom and the wisdom of Peter Levine from somatic experiencing really marry up very well for these two steps, flow and fluid. So see how it feels now. Notice if there are any parts of you, any sensations in your body that feel uncomfortable. Maybe there's some contraction in your body. Maybe there's some thoughts, some parts that are calling out for love. See if you can notice the sensation either in your experience, in consciousness, or in your body that feels open, that feels neutral. Could be in your toes. Could be in your hands, an openness in your hands. And see if you can, the closer you get to that experience, notice yourself opening to it and riding the waves towards spaciousness, peace, stability. And you might find that you pendulate or oscillate in between contraction and expansion, form and formlessness. Clarity, confusion. Judgment, unconditional love. These are some pairs of opposites that we can oscillate in between until we stabilize, until we settle. At this point, I would like to share a little image from my book that might be really useful to convey what I'm speaking about here. Let's see if I can find it. This image really conveys how the nervous system, a healed, awakened heart, isn't necessarily always a serene, perfectly flat ocean. But neither is it the jaggedy whole bunch of highs and lows. So I'm going to screen share now and you'll see. This is from my book. So you'll notice that the image on the right-hand side there, this is what I'm talking about. So an awakened body, awakened heart. So non-dual or aware presence isn't always this flat line, this calm. The only time we flatline is when we're dead, when we die. But equally, neither is the nervous system these kind of jaggedy, spiky chaos with many ups and many downs. What you'll find is that it's this gentle sine wave pattern, this undulation, up and down, but always with the ability to return to the baseline. So we can oscillate in between the experiences that were maybe caused by some trauma and the opposite of spaciousness. And when we oscillate in between those two, we eventually settle down at a very gentle rhythm. So I hope that was useful. I'm going to stop sharing now. Okay. The purpose of flowing and this fluidity is to harmonize the sort of the spiky, chaotic aspect of our inner experience. The parts that are very, very turbulent, they can settle down into a more peaceful rhythm. And then in that way, the boundaries in between self and parts, inner and outer, collapse. They become fluid. We no longer sense that there's any separation in between self and parts. or self and other. In fact, we find there are no others. There's just unbroken presence that is here and now, always. And then the final two of the 8 F's. So number 7, freedom, and number 8, fullness. So let's start with number 7 first. So when we taste this playfulness, this lila in between, oscillating, weaving in and out of facets of experience, without labeling, without resisting, rejecting, clinging, we find freedom. Rather than being at the mercy of our nervous system, reacting from habitual ingrained patterns of fight or flight, fighting against ourselves and others, we find freedom. We can flow. We can be in relationship with our inner world, outer world, and eventually the inner and outer collapse. This is true freedom. When we don't have to reject any aspect of the ever unfolding, experiencing, or awarenessing. Where every flower, every weed, every flora and fauna in our inner world is beautiful and welcome, just like in Rumi's guest house. And when we arrive at this, there's a sense of fullness. We feel full, we feel satiated, we feel fulfilled. We experience the richness of this present moment without craving any other state other than what is here and now. We can really sigh. We can breathe out this lovely, thank you. Incidentally, is the vowel sound of the heart chakra. Full and free. This is what's on offer. Non-dual approach to parts work. This is what's on offer for you. Total freedom, total fullness. You see, we are malnourished when we deny our feelings. And this is why the 8 F's starts with feel, simply feel. This is what it means to eat your daily bread, to digest experiences as they come, so they fuel, sustain, nourish, provide the energy that we need to create. It's beautiful creativity that wants to flow from us, manifest in this world. Even if it's peaceful presence, that's enough. Let that be enough. No need to accomplish or achieve anything. Ah. So I invite you over the next coming days or weeks, months, to practice these 8 Fs, to really attune to your inner world, to be gentle, compassionate, to use these aspects of somatic experiencing, of pendulating, oscillating, and as Patanjali says, to ride the pairs of opposites back into this non-dual awareness, peace, presence, freedom, fulfillment, fullness. So you'll find this practice and many others in my book, which is coming out just in a few days' time. It's entitled Awaken to Love, Reclaiming Wholeness Through Embodied Non-Duality with Jungian wisdom, psychosynthesis, and internal family systems. And it's my offering to you. It's my absolute pleasure to have witnessed multiple people who attend these groups awakening to the true nature, to reach these final 2 steps, freedom and fullness. It's so possible. It's not only possible, it's already yours. Freedom and fullness are already yours. We could equally invert these steps and start at number 8. In fact, when we follow this protocol, this non-dual internal family systems protocol, we find it's a spiral model. You might find that you start at 1, or you start at 8, or you start at 1, 2, and 3, and then you need to go back to 1 to feel again. There's no hierarchical order here. In a way, there's no finish line. But there is a baseline, and the baseline is this: you are already that which you seek. You are already the unconditional love and presence. The words heal, whole, health, and holy all have the same etymological root. You're already healed, you're already whole, you're already holy. By holy, I don't mean any religious connotation. I simply mean presence, beingness. So, thank you all for joining me. And I'll see you next week. Just before we come back, just notice how your surroundings feel. Maybe sending gratitude to your inner world. And just before we leave, I'm just going to share a screenshot of the 8 Fs, just so that you can keep those for yourself. They are in the book, but I'll share it anyway. So here we are. So feel through, field, friend, flow, fluid, freedom, fullness. And remember, they don't have to be in that order. Our inner world doesn't work like that. Our inner world is really nuanced, fluid, intertwined. I look forward to seeing you next week, dear friends. Namaste.